A decision is imminent in the case of Bruce Lehrmann versus Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson, the defamation case that has gripped Australia. I'm Claire Harvey, Editorial Director of The Australian and host of our daily news podcast, The Front. I'm joined by Ellie Dudley, our Legal Affairs correspondent. We've both been in court since November, covering this sprawling matter, which has dragged in the law, politics, sex, drugs, and a bit of rock and roll. Okay, so let's go through the potential findings on Monday. Number one, the judge finds she was raped. On the balance of probabilities, it did happen. Who wins in that case?
10 wins. I think at that stage, Justice Lee would find that Bruce Lehrmann is a liar, and whether or not qualified privilege stands up or not is just a kind of a moot point at that stage. Whether or not the rape occurred seems to be the bigger point here. Okay,
next option is that the judge finds that she was not raped, that Bruce Lehrmann is telling the truth when he says they didn't have sex at all.
It'll be interesting to see how qualified privilege plays in at that point, because at that stage you would safely say that Bruce has won, but whether or not 10 acted reasonably could reduce the amount of damages that he would receive in that instance.
The judge could find that they had sex, but that it was either consensual or that Bruce Lehrmann believed that it was consensual, i.e. that Brittany Higgins was not drunk enough to make it automatically non-consensual sex. What will be critical in that decision is the video of her walking into Parliament. She had not seen that vision before Channel 7's Spotlight report aired. And that was one of the big gets that they had. She walks through the checkpoint, she takes off her shoes, she walks through again, she attempts to put her shoes on, and then she kind of skips down the corridor following Lehrmann and a security guard. Much has been made of how drunk she was in that video, how drunk she appears, and that's going to be really important, isn't it?
Absolutely, and what we saw in that CCTV footage during the trial was her knocking back drinks at the Dock Hotel with her colleagues. We also heard from a toxicology expert saying that she would have been incredibly drunk had she drunk according to the CCTV footage that saw her drink 10 or 11 drinks that night. So yes, that's of course going to be important. Whether or not Justice Lee finds that they had consensual sex, or they had sex at all, consensual or otherwise, again, I think that is a huge mark on Lehrmann's credit. If the judge finds that they had sex, then he's brought these proceedings based on a lie, that lie being that they never had sex at all. And again, I could see Justice Lee really ripping into Lehrmann at that point for being a liar.
There is a possibility that the judge finds that whatever happened with the sexual encounter or otherwise, that 10 was not reasonable in publishing this story. That really brings Me Too reporting to a screaming halt, doesn't it?
It does, and it would be an incredible challenge for 10. This was sort of the shining glory of the project a few years ago before it sort of got dragged through a criminal trial and through Bruce Lehrmann's allegations and sort of subsequent interviews that have come out of it. But yeah, it really damages the ability for the media to do Me Too reporting without being incredibly careful about the sort of stories that they report and the allegations that they're reporting on.
This was Me Too on steroids too, because 10's claim in the very first words of the broadcast were that this was a story about a young woman silenced, forced to choose her career over the pursuit of justice, silenced by politics. 10 has claimed in all its submissions and its arguments that it did not claim that there was a political conspiracy. I mean, clearly the judge is going to have a problem believing that.
I would say so. In this interview, we know that Brittany Higgins gave evidence about her former boss, Fiona Brown, who was the Chief of Staff to Linda Reynolds, and how she was completely unsupportive when Brittany Higgins first reported the alleged rape to her. We heard Lisa Wilkinson say things like Parliament House is the easiest place in the country for a rape to occur. For them to say that no, they didn't report on any political conspiracy seems pretty unbelievable from where I'm standing. But again, it's up to Justice Lee to decide.
Fiona Brown and her then boss, Linda Reynolds, the former minister in the coalition government, have of course said that their lives have been ruined by the allegation that they participated in a political conspiracy. And we had some amazing evidence from Fiona Brown about what she said actually happened behind the scenes, which is that Minister Reynolds and another senior minister, Alex Hawke, were pressuring Fiona Brown to go to the police, saying, regardless of whether this young woman wants to go to the police or not, you need to drive yourself to a police station right now and report this anyway. She refused because she said, I can't do that without the victim's consent. Yeah. So, I mean, it's diabolical, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, there was one person that we didn't hear from throughout this trial who Justice Lee, I think, referred to as the Prophet Elijah, and that's David Sharaz. Do you think that he's going to come up at all on Monday?
I think the judge will absolutely have to make reference to him. It's very clear. The judge signalled numerous times to both sides that he wanted to hear what they thought about David Sharaz's contribution. Of course, David Sharaz is the boyfriend who came along a long time after this alleged rape, who then was the first person to contact both Lisa Wilkinson and Samantha Maiden, the court has heard, with a story about a political conspiracy. David Sharaz is a former television producer who is linked to the Labor Party. His first marriage involved, had a Labor Party theme.
Yeah, a Labor-themed wedding.
I suppose you didn't have a Labor-themed wedding.
I know, maybe the next one.
You know, the tables were named after former Prime Ministers. There was the Whitlam table and the Gillard table and 2 Rudd tables, which I thought was kind of funny. But, you know, there is no doubt that David Sharaz sold this story as the coalition's cover-up of a young woman's rape. In messages from David Sharaz to Brittany Higgins, which have been disclosed in these proceedings, we've seen him referring to then Prime Minister Scott Morrison with the C word. She has said in those messages, Brittany Higgins has said that the Prime Minister was going to get effed over. You know, David Sharaz's contribution, I think, must be something that the judge looks at. I just don't know which way it's going to fall.
Yeah, and because he was the first one to reach out to Lisa Wilkinson. He worked with Lisa way back when, and so sent her an email that I think he signed off with love or something like that. And it was something that Justice Lee asked a question about was, you know, is that normal? Was he an acquaintance or was he a friend? And Lisa Wilkinson made it very clear that David Sharaz was just an acquaintance, somebody who she had, you know, run into the halls of a television studio years earlier. So whether or not Justice Lee does make any comments about David Sharaz is yet to be seen.
Ellie, we'll get out the popcorn and be ready for the judgment on Monday.
Wonderful.